Okay, welcome. And we have Andrew Horn from Tribute.co. Andrew, really glad to have you with us today. Andrew's a social entrepreneur, a writer, a communication coach, a speaker, pretty much everything, right? You also, you do a whole bunch of things, but more importantly, you're the founder of Tribute, or the co-founder of Tribute.co, right? And Tribute is very interesting, right? It's what the Hallmark 2.0, as some people call it, 500,000 users. And you're doing some really cool stuff during this COVID time. Maybe Andrew, as an introduction, maybe you can tell us a little bit about Tribute, and more interestingly, tell us the journey of how you got to Tribute. I think that's going to be really fascinating.
Yeah. Anytime someone asks me to explain Tribute, I tell them the origin story because it's the easiest way to understand what it is and why we do it. And on my 27th birthday, I walked into my apartment with my girlfriend in Brooklyn, New York. And as I walked through that door, 20 of my closest friends and family members jumped out to surprise me because it was my birthday. And so we were having this big surprise party that my girlfriend, now wife, organized for me. About halfway through the party, my wife pulls out this projector. She puts the image up on the wall and she hits play, and I have no idea what's going on. And what I didn't know is that my wife had in secret reached out to 15 of my closest friends and family members, and she got each of them to submit a 1-minute video telling me why they love me and how it impacted their life.
Nice.
And so I sat there one by one as my dad comes on the screen and tells me how proud of me he is. My mom tells me how grateful she is that I helped her to turn around her business. And then my friend Matt tells me that I'm his best friend for the first time. And in this moment, I just started crying because it was so meaningful, so emotional. And I just did that for the next 20 minutes, which is how long the video was. And I immediately came out of that experience and I kissed my girlfriend and I said, "This is the best gift I've ever received. How did you do this?" And she looked back at me and she was like, "It really sucked." And I was like, "What do you mean it really sucked?" And she was like, "Well, I had to send hundreds of email invitations to these people over and over in them. I had to collect files through Dropbox and Drive and text message. I had to edit all together in iMovie." So within a minute, I realized this is the most powerful gift I've ever received, and it took her 15 hours to create. And so what started, in 2014 is this idea of sharing that powerful experience with others has transformed into this global technology platform and movement. We've given over 500,000 of these tribute videos. Our platform automates the process of inviting your friends. Automatic reminders get them to our site where they can submit from a phone, desktop, and then our site automatically compiles those, makes it easy to drag and drop, and give what we call the most meaningful gift on earth.
Very nice. And during this COVID time, right? I mean, I understand you're packaging it slightly differently in terms of Tribute. What's the special?
Yeah, it was crazy. Our business had just had steady growth for the past 3 or 4 years. And it was about a month ago, as I get the readout every single day of site usage and where traffic's coming from. And then all of a sudden we just see the curve just start to go up and up and up. And then we start to see it just kind of skyrocket, truly like exponential growth. And we started to get all these users on the site who were telling us stories of going to give birth and their partner couldn't be with them in the hospital. People who were going to funerals and they couldn't have their families with them. Millions of students graduating, can't have graduations and weddings being postponed. And so we just realized that in this very extreme time where we can't be with the ones that we love, our mission is to connect people with the people they care about. And so we wanted to play our part. And so we decided to make our basic $25 tribute completely free for anyone who wants to use the site, to make it easier for people to celebrate their loved ones, to connect in this time where it's more important than ever.
Wow. And is there some thinking behind it? I mean, is it just because it's the COVID, or is it a way to potentially draw in a couple more users? I mean, a lot of people, especially out in Asia, right? It's one of the first times we were hearing of Tribute, and I tried it out, just to check it out. But is that potentially a strategy that may help you in the longer term in terms of building your user base?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Tribute is that there's a built-in virality, is that our marketing is we don't spend a lot on performance marketing and social marketing or ads at all. We really focus on creating a great product that adds value that people want to pay for. And so in this instance, anyone who uses Tribute, they usually invite about 18 of their friends. And so certainly we'd like to make money off of our product, but also in this time when people use the product, they invite their friends, they get to see it. And so while we're certainly not making as much money on these products as we normally do, at the same time we're expanding our user base. And so strategically it's great to interact with customers and to offer value really kind of into build up goodwill with people who will hopefully become customers down the road as well. So we view that as a win-win, where we get to be of service and then hopefully connect with people and build up what could become future customers.
Fantastic. And talking about yourself, I mean, how did you get into this whole entrepreneurial space? What sort of triggered you? Was it something early in life, or is it something recently, a couple of years? Or?
I would say that I was kind of unhirable for a very long time. I had several unceremonious exits from early jobs in hospitality and restaurants and all sorts of other things. Is that the only things that I could really give my attention and my energy and my focus to were the things that I was architecting and crafting myself. And that was just my entire life. And then, where I really, because I call myself a social entrepreneur, everything that I put my energy into is really kind of in the service of a cause or a community, something that I really care about. And that really happened kind of right after graduation, of just understanding I really had not a lot of purpose in my life, and I was exploring what it was that I wanted to do with my career, with my life. And I just realized after a lot of soul searching that the only things I had ever done in my life that really kind of had a residual positive impact on me were these times where my junior year of college, I spent 3 months volunteering for an organization doing adaptive athletics, sports for young people with disabilities. Was the time I spent working with women in shelters for women who had been abused by their spouses. And it was these moments of service where I found sustainable fulfillment. And so I just knew that I loved the creativity of entrepreneurship, the autonomy to run my own thing, my own way. And I knew that I wanted to be of service. And so when you put all those things together, that's social entrepreneurship. And then all of these different things, everything I build, whether that's as a speaker, whether that's as a tech entrepreneur, whether that's as a facilitator working with men, it's really a part of just me sharing my own journey. What are the things that I've experienced that have been really valuable to me? And how can I package that in a way where it can help other people? With Tribute, it was, again, I received this thing and it was incredible. It was the best gift I've ever received. And so now I created a product that has made that available to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people all around the world. And then my introduction to, I don't know if we'll talk about it as much, but to men's work, to creating rites of passage and retreats for men and men's groups, and how powerful that was as a transformative force in my life. And now I get to create those spaces for men myself. It's my journey as an entrepreneur is so much about sharing what's been most impactful and empowering for myself with others in creative ways.
And you talked about, you mentioned this men's work that you do. I think it's called Junto, right?
It's called the Junto, yeah.
And this is leading a community of men. Talk us through that. What is that exactly, and what's the impact there?
Yeah, so the through line of all of my work, whether that's, again, as a speaker, as a tech entrepreneur, as a facilitator, is, I would say, communication and human connection. It's how do we help people to communicate effectively and connect deeply in their relationships. And so at Tribute, you can see that, again, it's all about sharing appreciation, which is fundamental to human connection. At the Junto, 5 years ago, I started studying a modality called Gestalt practice, which is basically just a framework to help people communicate more authentically, confidently, and really to exist in the present moment. And as someone who had a lot of challenges socially growing up, a lot of shyness, a lot of social discomfort, as I started to learn more about how to really be real with myself and others, how to speak my truth, if you will, I just found that to be such a cathartic and empowering process. And as I started to experience those types of spaces with just men, I found that it was so powerful, because so often as men, we're conditioned to be the strong man, to not be vulnerable, to project that never weak archetype. And so when you get a group of men together and provide a space where they can get real about all aspects of their relationship, there's such an opportunity for healing and for growth. And especially in a time where we are kind of in this post-Me Too world, where so many men are asking themselves questions of, how can we create a more just, egalitarian world for all? I love creating these spaces where men can get real, can go deep and connect deeply with other men outside of just a personal growth. It's, loneliness amongst the millennial generation, and especially kind of middle-aged men, is skyrocketing at this time. It's like that, and that connection, that isolation is so often what breeds extremism and violence. And so whether I'm creating spaces online through Tribute or creating spaces in the analog physical world where people can come together and connect, that's where I really come alive.
And you talk about this connection that men need to have, and I think that's real, right? I mean, every one of us are humans, and we need that relationships and that that connectivity. But what are some of the impact stories? I mean, I'm sure you have some fantastic stories of men that really have benefited and have been impacted by this community and this communal work that you do. Do you have any a couple of maybe quick stories?
Sure.
That you may
I mean, I can tell you, I get goosebumps when you ask that, because I literally have one from last night. I was with a group of men. We do a weekly virtual gathering for men, a virtual men's group, where we get to check in with ourselves, we get to connect with other men and explore different parts of our lives. And last night we were talking about purpose. The week before that we were talking about our relationship with their father, and one of the men there who has a very traditional relationship with his father, very kind of surface level, and they don't tend to go deep. We had talked about basically unleashing our curiosity into our relationship with our father. What don't you know about your father that you would like to? How can you seek to understand and accept them for who they are? Because so many of us want to be understood by our dads. We want to be accepted by our dads. And I say to these guys, but do you know who your dad really is? Do you know what his struggles are? Do you know what his challenges are, his dreams are? And so this man shared after this week that he created the space for a container with his father, where he was like, I'd love to have a longer conversation than we normally do. And he asked him all these questions. And it was in this moment that he learned so much about who his dad was. He humanized his dad. He had such a deeper level of compassion. And his father also articulated to him that he was so worried about him for a long time, but that he really felt that he was safe now, that he was so proud of him, and it opened up this new level of vulnerability and love from his father to him. And it was just, again, this ability to communicate authentically, compassionately, and how that can transform our relationships. And that was in 1 week. And so, that's just one that comes alive there. But I think it is, again, it's so often we've been conditioned into this really rigid role of how we need to be in the world. And it's just limiting our freedom of expressing ourselves. And so it's not just about expressing ourselves, but how can we create spaces where other people can do that as well? And as men, to do that where our parents can do that, where our partners can do that, where our friends can do that. I think of that as communication leadership, is that when we master communication, we can liberate not just our own confidence, our own inspiring communication, but we can create spaces for others to do that as well. And that's where it gets really exciting.
No, that's great. That's great. And you speak a lot about communications, about building confidence, especially. And I think confidence is so important, right? You can have skills, but if you don't have the confidence, you can't execute well. So you talk about building confidence, communication, and also the human connection in this digital age, right? And I know you speak about this and you share best practices and tips. Would you be able to give us a couple, in this short?
Yeah, totally.
Just share a couple of nuggets of wisdom that you may have in this.
Well, my favorite definition of confidence is actually from my mentor in the world of coaching and facilitation, this incredible woman, Lauren Zander. And she says that confidence is the merger of respecting yourself and speaking the truth. Confidence is the merger of respecting yourself and speaking the truth. And so it's like, to be confident is not necessarily like just something that you do. It's something that you are. It's basically to respect yourself and then just be real. That's real confidence. And so what I oftentimes focus a lot of my training on is this modality that I've created called social flow. And so many of your listeners are probably familiar with the flow state, that peak performance state that we associate with, just like absolutely nailing it, whether you're coding behind a computer or you're surfing on a wave or you're just watching a movie and just zoned in for 2 hours. It's flow is that peak performance state. So social flow is, how do we achieve that state? How do we achieve that state with people? And so what I've synthesized is this little acronym that's really easy to remember, and it's called I CAN. So if you just think, anytime you're getting ready for a meeting, anytime you're getting ready for a social gathering, I can. And the big shift here with I can is that so often we're going into a big business meeting, we're going into a big conference, and we're looking for external validation. We're looking other people to like us, to validate what we're saying, or to give us some cues that we're smart, that we're attractive, that we're doing it right. And so that is exactly what takes us out of confidence, is what is truly kind of the easiest way to tap into confidence are our intrinsic motivators, not external validation. It's internal motivation. And I can will do that. So I is intentionality. And so intentionality would just be, okay, I'm getting on this call with Rohan. How do I want to show up? And I'd say, I want to be really present. I want to be passionate about what I'm saying, and I want to share things that can help people. So now I'm focused on how I want to show up here. So immediately when I put my attention onto my intention, I'm going to create more of the energy that I want. So that's intentionality. C just stands for curiosity. Is it so often we're going thinking about, again, how other people are going to perceive us, go in curious. What do I want to know about these people? Ask yourself, who am I going to meet and what do I most want to know about that person? We can train our curiosity like a muscle so that we're more capable of going into any situation, learning about people, which is our quickest path to growth. And you can always contribute in conversations when you've honed your curiosity. So that's the C. And the next one is authenticity, which is just, what do I have to share that I'm excited about? Yep. So it's what's going on that I'm interested in, what's going on that is alive for me. That could be something that's challenging. That could be something that's happening with my business, of just being aware of all the things that are going on for us that we have to share. Again, taps us into our intrinsic motivation for sharing, that awareness of I have things that I want to talk about. And then the last one is just now, is being in the present moment. Nice. One of my favorite tips about public speaking, about networking, comes from my friend AJ at The Art of Charm, a really popular podcast. And he says that in 10 years of podcasting with the best people in the world, interpersonal dynamics and communication, his favorite piece of advice was, everything happens one conversation at a time. And so often where we knock ourselves out of our state of confidence is because we're focused on what's going to happen next. We're focused on what the person is thinking about us. We're focused on so many other things other than what's happening right now. So there's that loop that happens, is intentionality, curiosity, authenticity, now. And if you do that, you can go into any moment, just taps into your internal motivation to communicate, to connect, and speak clearly.
Wow, that's fantastic. I really like that now. I mean, be in the present and really be in the present. And you talked about podcasts, and you also have your own podcast, right? You have a series called What's the Big Idea, right? What's that, and what do you speak about in the podcast?
Yeah, so my mother, Sam Horn, is a professional author and speaker, and her expertise and what I grew up around was her working with New York Times bestsellers and Fortune 500 CEOs, and she is an expert, one of the best at helping people to distill and articulate the value of their idea in a really short time frame. And so whether that's the back copy on a book, whether that's a TED Talk. And so I had the privilege of helping her to take all of her writing and her techniques and to put it into a training program when I was younger. And so I learned by osmosis all of the techniques and the frameworks to help people really express value and win buy-in from other people. And so what I love with my podcast, What's the Big Idea, is I have some of the most interesting people on the planet on, whether that is, Alex E. Baer, Grammy Award-winning musician, or that's Jack Canfield, the best-selling nonfiction author of the 21st century. And so I get these people on to have a soulful conversation that's really focused on what is the one idea that you wish more people could deeply understand. And so I try to navigate those conversations in such a way that we are framing, why did they do this? We're framing, what are the things that get in the way of people implementing this into their life? How can people really integrate this actively into their behavior? How can they transform? And so that's really What's the Big Idea is. I think of it as like a more soulful TED Talk with practical takeaways in every episode.
Fantastic. I want to just close this out by getting a piece of advice from you, potentially. I mean, there's quite a few people very interested in the social enterprise space. I mean, we are also a social enterprise out here in Asia. But, when you think about the social enterprise space and setting up a social enterprise, starting a social enterprise, what are some possible tips or best practices or ideas or, maybe advice that you can impart to people thinking of embarking on this journey of being social entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think that social entrepreneurship is about not just solving problems and helping people, but doing it in a way that really connects with who you are and what you care about. And so I oftentimes think about really the C's of social entrepreneurship is first asking yourself, so what are the causes that I care about? So what are the causes, and whether that's environmental, whether that is political, whether that's in personal development, what are the causes that I care about? I'm just taking an audit of what are the things that I care about that I want to contribute to. So what are the causes that I care about? And then you can look at the communities, or there's specific communities of people that I want to help, whether those are people in a specific demographic, those are people in a specific town of a political party, what are the communities that are there? And then, so if you look at those C's of just understanding what is it that I care about, then you're going to have so much more of a way of identifying, okay, so what are the needs in those different places? It's a great way to start looking for ideas. And then again, it's one of the things that my wife says, who's an incredible author and entrepreneur herself, is she always says, what sucks in my world? What sucks in my world, and does it suck for anybody else? And so, she created a great business that is taking off as well during COVID-19 and social distancing. Started a company called Tushy, which is, so my wife is half Indian, half Japanese. So she grew up around bidets, but in America, there's no bidets. And she's like, this makes no sense. It's like, why would you wipe your butt with toilet paper as opposed to washing it? Like you take a shower. And so she said, so this sucks in my life. Does it suck for anyone else? Yeah, they don't exist in America. And so now if you are solving a problem that you have in your own life for other people, you have something that you're likely going to be able to be passionate about for a while. So I think that's so much of it, because connecting with a deeper sense of purpose is in my opinion, the most sustainable source of energy. And a great example of that is I've been building Tribute with my company for 6 years, and it's been a fun ride and we love what we do, but it took us 6 years to get to this moment where the curve started going like that. And, there were really challenging moments of missing payroll in months and things like that. But we loved the business, we cared about it. And so we toughed it out. And now we're in a moment where, this exponential inflection point, which is really exciting.
So I'm close up with Tribute, and Tribute, I think you're at a point where you've seen that exponential growth. What's next for Tribute? And, I know you've slogged it out for a couple of years now. Is there an exit, or what, for yourself? I mean, where do you see yourself next also? So just.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think that the New Yorker called us Hallmark 2.0 in that company. And that really is the trajectory, is that, again, if you look at Hallmark, which is this beautiful company, or American Greetings, it's like these were the staple brands for sharing meaningful messages. And the reality is that the greeting card industry is just shrinking. People are no longer doing that. But people are communicating online, but there's no one who has created the context or the framework where people can share those meaningful messages really well. And that is Tribute, and that is what we will continue to be, is to be that brand that is reminding people in the digital space that we can be intentional about how we communicate, that we can share meaningful messages, and that when we do that, technology can truly enhance our relationships. It can enhance our life, as opposed to so much of the technology that does that extracts value, that distracts us from what matters. And we want to be that brand that, again, 100 years from now, people look at as being this force that truly transformed the way that we communicate with people for the better. And so, if there are strategic investors from, some of the larger gift and greeting companies, we're starting to field some conversations there, which is exciting. So that's the path that we're headed on.
Okay, fantastic. And Andrew, it's been absolute pleasure speaking to you. Totally enlightening. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. We've been speaking to Andrew Horn, Brooklyn-based social entrepreneur, writer, communication coach, and the Dale Carnegie of the digital age, right? That's what.
Thanks
again, Andrew. Appreciate your time.